In 1965, the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or EEOC, failed to end sex segregation and help wanted ads. Dr. Pauli Murray, a member of the President's Commission on the Status of Women and the Law professor at Yale, criticized the EEOC's stance on sex-segregated help wanted ads. Author of The Feminine Mystique, which was the main principle for the feminist movement, Betty Friedan contacted Dr. Murray. They had been speaking about the need for an organization to speak on behalf of women in the way civil rights groups had done for blacks. After a conference where they were told they had no authority, Friedan, Murray, and other confounded conference attendees met in Friedan's hotel room to discuss other strategies. They wrote the acronym NOW on a napkin, and the National Organization for Women was born. The National Organization for Women, or NOW, was crucial to the success of the 1960s and 70s feminist movement and continues to fight for women so that they are seen and treated equally to men.
In NOW's original statement of purpose, it stated, "It is essential for every girl to be educated to her full potential of human ability as it is for every boy." NOW planned to change people's attitudes towards the importance of education for women. They also wanted to get rid of how women were expected less of in school and instead encourage women to put their education to use. In 1971, NOW notices that women are being discriminated against in work and universities and begins to protest the Department of Health, Education, and Welfare and their failure to deal with these issues. Moving on to 1972, NOW ran a national campaign so they could pass a law that ensured women would get more chances for university admissions and to participate in sports. Later on in June, Title IX of the Education Amendments of 1972 was passed, which allowed women to participate in sports and also get rid of discrimination in all government-funded programs.
Another one of NOW's original task forces was focused on equal employment opportunity. The discrimination in the workforce was so that there were separate help wanted ads for males and females in newspapers. In 1966, NOW members petitioned the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC, to support the end of sex-segregated help wanted ads. In 1967, the EEOC held hearings on sex discrimination help wanted ads. When the EEOC failed to get rid of sex-segregated employment ads, they protested at EEOC offices across the country. Later in the year, the New York Times and 3 other New York newspapers stopped segregating their help wanted ads. In June of 1973, the U.S. Supreme Court prohibited sex-segregated help wanted ads. NOW also boycotted the Colgate-Palmolive company and demonstrated in front of their headquarters holding a flush-in where they flushed Colgate products. Colgate kept women out of the most high-paying jobs by prohibiting them from lifting more than 35 pounds.
The Women in Poverty's main initiative was to find ways to reduce poverty and put them to use. This was called for job training, job creation, educational for potential jobs, and the use of women's existing skills. They found out that women who are in poverty are also discriminated against more. These were either women who were single mothers or head of families with no support, unemployed women who could not find work, women who worked at low-paying jobs, unimportant jobs, or female high school dropouts. In 1969, NOW organized a hunger strike for 17 days called Hungry for Justice. The strike was to help them veto the Welfare Reform Bill, which would cut $62 billion in funding help for children and families. This would result in an increase in poverty among women and children.
There was also a legal and political rights task force aimed mainly to get women more involved in politics. They wanted to educate men and women on what legal rights women needed. NOW also realized that many women who were capable of voting did not and hoped to change that. NOW wanted to start a campaign to get women to run for government on local, state, and national levels. They also called for an end of separate but not equal organizations for women. In 1969, NOW held a Freedom for Women Week. They demonstrated at the White House, Chicago, Albuquerque, and Los Angeles for a week starting on Mother's Day. They called for rights, not roses. During February 1907, a group of NOW members impeded a Senate hearing on the 18-year-old vote. At a signal by Wilma Hyde, they rose, taking posters out of their purses, and they demanded hearings on the Equal Rights Amendment.
In NOW's statement of purpose, it stated that the distorted image that represented women perpetuate contempt for women by society and by women for themselves. The Image of Woman Task Force planned to replace the old images of women with a new one that showed women who were equal to men. They wanted to display this image everywhere in order to change people's thoughts as women just being portrayed as housewives. One way people thought they could help change this image of women was to show up to a beauty pageant. About 400 feminists, including some members of NOW, showed up to the Miss American beauty pageant in Atlantic City on September 7, 1968. They all gathered onto the boardwalk outside to protest the pageant to show that women are worth more than their beauty. This event blew up in the media and the word spread along major newspapers. At first, the event wasn't taken seriously, but it ended up helping the feminist movement gain more power.
NOW stated in their statement of purpose, We do not accept the traditional assumption that a woman has to choose between marriage and motherhood on the one hand and serious participation in industry or the professions on the other. In 1967, they released a report on the Task Force on Women and Family. Their goal was that women would stop being limited to where and how long they could work, and men would stop being forced to work overtime in order to pay for their families and have more time to be involved in their children's life. They proposed ways to achieve this goal, such as making childcare easier and more accessible, changes in divorce laws to make it easier for both men and women, and individual control of reproductive life. NOW was the first national organization to advocate for the legislation of abortion. In 1973, Roe v. Wade made abortion within the first 3 months of pregnancy legal in all states. NOW members also escorted women to the abortion clinics that were being picketed after Roe v. Wade.
The Women in Religion Task Force noticed that discriminating someone because they are a certain sex goes against most religious principles. We oppose discrimination based on sex and the religious teachings and laws which cause or enforce it. NOW's main goals was to have more women study theology and get involved in the theological work to prove that more women could get more jobs in the religious field, to get more women involved in the religious groups, organizations, and jobs where they were excluded from and often discriminated against. They planned on changing religious groups so that they could have equal pay. They also wanted to change religious-funded schools and colleges so both girls and both had the equal right to attend. In 1967, NOW got involved with the Equal Rights Amendment and were determined to get it passed. The Equal Rights Amendment would stop discrimination based on sex and would make women equal to men. The Women in Religion Task Force leader Elizabeth Ferrans wanted religious groups to help support the ERA by stating how it suited religion. Sadly, the Equal Rights Amendment fell just 3 states short from being ratified. The Equal Rights Amendment, or ERA, was a proposed amendment that never passed that ensured equal rights for women. The ERA was initially written by Alice Paul and it was first introduced into Congress in 1923. NOW officially joined the fight to pass the ERA in 1967. In February 1970, during a Senate hearing on constitutional amendments, 20 NOW leaders interrupted the hearing and demanded that the Congress have a meeting on the ERA. State legislators began to be under pressure from groups against the ERA. Many candidates that were for the ERA were elected from NOW chapters in unratified states, but some who were for the ERA voted against it. Also in 1977, in February, NOW helps promote the boycott of the states that weren't ratified, and this results in even more support for the ERA. In March, NOW asked for a longer period of time for the ERA to be ratified because there's no time limit listed in the Constitution. In 1978, the NOW National Board planned to pass the bill to extend the deadline and ratify the ERA. On July 9th, in Washington, D.C., NOW organized the largest March for Equality, which involved over 100,000 supporters for the ERA extension.
The National Organization for Women started its fight for equal rights in 1965, but it did not wash away when the second wave of feminism receded. NOW is still fighting to achieve its goal of equality for women, fighting for both new and old issues. The NOW official website states that their main priorities as of now are abortion rights and other reproductive issues. They believe all women have the right to safe and legal abortion, effective birth control, and emergency contraception. Ending violence against women NOW recognizes there are many different aspects of the issue, such as domestic violence, sexual assault, violence at abortion clinics, and other issues. Constitutional equality. Equality in matters like pay, job opportunities, political structure, social security, and education are not all guaranteed to women. When they are, it's by a bill that Congress may change, causing an insecurity in rights for women. Promoting diversity and ending racism. NOW believes that human rights are not dependent on a person's race and strives to be inclusive of all races, as well as having a combating racism committee. Lesbian rights. NOW fights discrimination based on sexuality or gender identity in all areas and is committed to education efforts against homophobia. The National Organization for Women has, is, and will continue to fight until women are treated equally.
I am woman, hear me roar, in numbers too big to ignore, and I know too much to go back and pretend, 'cause I've heard it all before, and I've been down